A federal court just made a decision that could change how gun laws work in 12 different states, and if you own a firearm, you need to understand what happened before this impacts you. The courts are rewriting the rulebook on everything from magazine capacity to who can carry where, and some of these changes are happening right now in ways most gun owners completely missed. Before we dive in, do me one favor, hit that subscribe button right now. Why? Because 90% of gun owners miss critical legal updates like this, and I don't want you to be one of them. The information I am about to share could be the difference between staying legal and facing serious charges you never saw coming. So click subscribe, then let's get into what just happened. Here's what you need to know. We're in the middle of the biggest shift in gun law since the Supreme Court's Bruen decision back in 2022. And I'm not talking about small changes. I'm talking about courts across the country completely redefining what the Second Amendment means for everyday gun owners. Let me break down exactly what's happening and why it matters to you. First thing, let's talk about the Supreme Court cases that are setting the stage for everything else. Right now, the Supreme Court is hearing two major Second Amendment cases this term. The first one is called Woolford versus Lopez. This case is about whether Hawaii can ban you from carrying a handgun on private property that's open to the public, unless the property owner specifically says it's okay. Think about that for a second. We're talking about places like shopping malls, restaurants, any business that's privately owned but open to customers. Hawaii's law says you can't carry there unless there's a sign saying you can. That's the opposite of how it works in most states. The second case is United States versus Hemani. This one is about federal law that says you can't own a gun if you're an unlawful user of controlled substances. Now, with marijuana legal in so many states but still illegal federally, this case could have massive implications. The court's going to decide if the government can take away your gun rights just because you use something that is illegal where you live but not under federal law. The decision on this case could affect millions of gun owners. Here's the crazy part. These two cases are just the tip of the iceberg. There are at least 6 other major gun law issues that lower courts are completely split on, and the Supreme Court hasn't touched them yet. Let me walk you through what's creating chaos in courtrooms across America. Issue number 1, AR-15 style rifles. Some courts say these rifles are protected by the Second Amendment because they're the most popular rifles in America. Other courts say they're too dangerous and can be banned. Right now, states like Maryland and Illinois have bans in place, and Justice Brett Kavanaugh has already said the Supreme Court. We'll probably have to step in within the next term or two to settle this once and for all. If you own an AR-15 or you're thinking about buying one, pay attention to what your state is doing right now. Issue number 2, large capacity magazines. Multiple states have banned magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, but here's where it gets weird. Some federal courts say these magazines aren't even arms under the Second Amendment, so states can ban them without any constitutional problem. Other courts say they are arms, but the bans are okay anyway because of historical tradition. And then you've got Washington State's Supreme Court saying in 2025 that large capacity magazines are not necessary for self-defense. So banning them is fine. The problem is, there's no consistency. What's legal in one state gets you arrested in another. Pause. Now, quick legal note. This is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. I'm here to help you understand what's happening, but every case is different, so make sure you get professional guidance if you're facing any legal issues. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the exact words to say when police ask if you're carrying a gun. That one could literally save you from a felony charge. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Because I break down the legal phrases that keep you protected during traffic stops and police encounters. All right, let's keep going. Issue number 3, felon in possession laws. Federal law says if you've been convicted of any crime that could have gotten you more than a year in prison, you can never own a gun again, ever, even if your crime was completely nonviolent. We're talking about someone who committed food stamp fraud 20 years ago, or someone who wrote a bad check decades ago. Right now, 8 out of 9 federal circuit courts say these lifetime bans are constitutional no matter what crime you committed. But one circuit, the Third Circuit, said it's unconstitutional to permanently disarm someone for a nonviolent crime from decades ago. The Supreme Court just denied a bunch of petitions on this issue in January 2026, which probably means they're not going to step in anytime soon. That's bad news for people trying to get their rights restored. Issue number 4, sensitive places. The Supreme Court said in 2022 that states can restrict guns in sensitive places like schools and government buildings. But what about everywhere else? Some states are now saying places like public transportation, parks, zoos, churches, and any place that serves alcohol are all sensitive places where you can't carry. The question is, what makes a place sensitive? Is it just because the government says so? Or does there have to be armed security and metal detectors? Illinois has a case pending right now that challenges a ban on guns on public buses and trains. The gun owners in that case argue that unless the government is providing security, they have the right to defend themselves. This issue could determine whether you can legally carry in hundreds of different locations. Issue number 5, age restrictions. Can states and the federal government say you have to be 21 to buy a gun, even though you're legally an adult at 18? Some courts say yes, because there's historical tradition of treating young people differently. Other courts say no, because once you turn 18, you have full constitutional rights, including the Second Amendment. This one matters if you're between 18 and 21, or if you have kids in that age range. Right now, there are cases pending on this issue, but the Supreme Court hasn't taken any of them up yet. But here's the part that shocked me. It's not just about what laws are constitutional, it's about which history counts. After the Bruen decision, courts are supposed to look at historical tradition to decide if a gun law is legal. But should they only look at history from 1791 when the Second Amendment was ratified? Or can they look at laws from the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, or even later? The Supreme Court has acknowledged this is a huge unresolved question, but they keep refusing to answer it. And that means lower courts are all over the place, picking and choosing which history to rely on. Hey, 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the 50,000 gun owners who get these updates first and stay ahead of the legal changes that could affect their rights. Click subscribe right now so you're never caught off guard. Now let's talk about what's happening at the state level, because this is where things get really complicated. In 2025, Colorado passed one of the most restrictive gun laws in the country. It's called Senate Bill 3, and it bans most semi-automatic rifles and shotguns with detachable magazines, plus all gas-operated semi-automatic handguns with detachable magazines. But here's where it gets bizarre. You can still buy these guns if you take an expensive multi-day training course and get a special permit. So the state is saying these guns are too dangerous for regular people, but if you pay enough money for classes, suddenly they're fine. Does that make any sense to you? And it gets weirder. The law has a list of specific guns that are exempt from the ban. Guns like the Ruger Mini 14 and the M1 carbine are specifically allowed, even though they function almost exactly the same as guns that are banned. There's no logical consistency. It's like the lawmakers just picked random models out of a hat. Oh, and Colorado also added a 6.5% tax on all gun and ammo sales. So now you're paying extra taxes just to exercise a constitutional right. Oregon's dealing with its own mess. Back in 2022, voters narrowly passed Measure 114 by just 50.7%. This law requires you to get a permit before you can buy any gun. To get the permit, you have to complete a firearm safety course, get fingerprinted and photographed, and pass an enhanced background check. Then you pay up to $65 for the permit, which is good for 5 years. When it's time to renew, you pay up to $50 again. And there's no exception for private sales between family or friends. Every single gun transfer has to go through a licensed dealer, and the buyer has to show their permit. The law also bans magazines over 10 rounds. For years, this law was blocked by courts. But in March 2025, Oregon's Court of Appeals said it's constitutional under the state constitution. Now it's probably heading to the state Supreme Court. And if they don't overturn it, Measure 114 will become the law in Oregon. Here's what most people get wrong about these state laws. They think, well, I don't live in Colorado or Oregon, so this doesn't affect me. Wrong. Here's why. When one state passes a restrictive law and courts uphold it, other states start copying it. Washington State is already moving forward with House Bill 1163, which is almost identical to Oregon's law. It would require a 5-year permit, fingerprints, and mandatory training before you can buy any gun. If Washington passes this, how long before your state tries the same thing? This is the part nobody's talking about. We're seeing a pattern. States pass restrictive laws, gun rights groups sue, the cases get tied up in court for years, and by the time the courts make a decision, the political and legal landscape has already shifted. Meanwhile, gun owners in those states are stuck in limbo, not knowing what's legal and what's not. Let me give you a real-world example. In Washington State, the legislature passed a law banning the sale and manufacture of magazines over 10 rounds. Gun owners challenged it. A trial court said the ban was unconstitutional. But then the U.S. Supreme Court issued the Bruen decision, and everything changed. The Washington Supreme Court reversed the trial court and said large capacity magazines aren't even arms under the Second Amendment, so the ban is fine. If you're a gun owner in Washington, you went from thinking you won your case to losing everything, all because of how courts interpreted one Supreme Court decision. If this information could literally expire after the legal landscape shifts again in the next year, subscribe now, because my next video explains exactly what you need to do to protect yourself before new laws hit your state. Don't wait until it's too late. So what does all this mean for you? Here's the bottom line. Gun laws are changing faster than most people realize. Courts are split on almost every major Second Amendment issue. States are passing new restrictions that might or might not be constitutional, and it could take years to find out. And while all this is happening, gun owners are stuck trying to figure out what's legal where they live. Here's my advice. First, know your state laws. Don't assume that what's legal in one state is legal in yours. Second, if you travel with firearms, research the laws in every state you're going through. What's legal at home could get you arrested 2 states over. Third, stay informed. Laws are changing constantly, and ignorance is not a defense in court. And fourth, support organizations that are fighting these cases in court, because the legal battles happening right now will determine your gun rights for the next generation. One more thing. If you're thinking about buying a gun, buying magazines, or making any major firearms purchase, do it sooner rather than later. We don't know how these court cases will turn out, and we don't know what new laws your state might pass next year. What's legal today might not be legal tomorrow. Look, I spend hours researching this stuff, so you don't have to. The least you can do is hit subscribe to support the channel and make sure you never miss an update that could protect your rights. Deal? Click that button right now. To wrap this up, here's what you need to remember. The courts are reshaping gun laws across the country right now. The Supreme Court is hearing major cases on carrying guns in public places and drug users' gun rights. Lower courts are split on AR-15 bans, magazine capacity limits, felon possession laws, sensitive places, and age restrictions. And states like Colorado, Oregon, and Washington are passing some of the strictest gun laws in the country. All of this is happening right now, and most gun owners have no idea. Don't be one of the people who finds out about a law change after you've already broken it. Subscribe to this channel, stay informed, and protect your Second Amendment rights. Because when it comes to gun laws, what you don't know can absolutely hurt you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we cover exactly what to say and what not to say when law enforcement asks about your firearms. Stay safe out there.